Hi everybody, this is the last video and we're going to look at three potential future scenarios. They're extremes, so probably what's going to happen is something in the middle, but it is nice to know, at least from where things stand now, what some bounds may be. Of course, all of this depends on people, it depends on nations, it depends on the climate, and it depends on investment. But let's see what happens. Okay, so in one scenario, the changes that we see to energy infrastructure are led by the market, that is economy. In another scenario, all of the changes are led by policy, that is government. And then in the third scenario, the changes kind of go in the same direction they've been going for a while, which is increased polarization and fragmentation. So let's consider each case in turn. Market leads, so in that particular scenario, the products we choose to invest in and implement are driven by the consumer. That's you and me, and that's all of the generations that are to come. That's a very strong voice because money does drive so much. So let's not put that aside because we don't think it's important or it won't work. It actually is a very important one. And it helps you realize why your purchases and voices are so important. This one can lead to a fair outcome for climate change, energy equity, and energy security. So the reason this would be is because generally people are wanting more renewable and climate-friendly stuff. And that includes Democrats. It also includes Republicans, but primarily in the newer generations. So that's going to be a shift that I expect to happen, though it'll happen over time. It won't be immediate. Energy equity, because we will push for more social justice over time, not only in the US, but worldwide. And energy security, because we'll invest naturally over time in more renewable technologies. Okay, in this case, the places that have money, the first world, win first. And the developing and third worlds, they win a little bit later. Unless a lot of people with a lot of money say, I'm not putting the money in here, I'm going to go put it in those developing areas. So that's usually something we would wish would happen, but usually doesn't happen very quickly. Okay. Policy leads. That's where the government really leads into our next scenario. And that's the best outcome for climate change, energy equity, and energy security. Why do I say that? Well, when the world is faced with a problem, a challenge, like COVID-19, or like a world war, or something else, we tend to work together and we get stuff done. So right now, and in the recent past, last 20 years or so, there have been some major efforts in the area of climate change. It's no longer something that people are just protesting on the street about or making loud noise about in small areas. It's something that national governments meet every year, several times a year, to talk about and set goals to reduce their emissions and work towards a future that relies more on renewables and less on things that destroy the environment. Because it involves the whole world, it brings people to the table from developing and third world countries. And it also makes everyone realize that that group is not going to be able to invest as much as other groups, first world countries. So the discussions are not only what are you going to do, they're how are we going to help those who can't afford all of the changes at once. So that's a natural part of the discussion. Okay, so that's a good thing. So it's a win for the first world after some disruption. And maybe we're seeing some of that disruption right now because it's not going to be an easy transition that takes place overnight. It involves changing infrastructure. It involves changing how we do things. It might lead to some power outages or some drops in supplies as we make those changes and put them into play. But hopefully that won't last very long. It will be a win for developing and third worlds also, but that'll probably happen, again, not as quickly as the first world, but less slowly than in the market leads case. And then finally, one scenario that's frightening is if we continue down a road of polarization and fragmentation, or turning inward rather than turning outward and allowing free trade and that kind of thing. So in that case, changes are thwarted, right? You're not using the global community to work on a problem. You're using each country individually to work on their own problems. So our problems might be switching to renewables, reducing emissions, and developing some degree of safe energy security, whereas problems in a developing nation might be, how do I build more coal-fired power plants so I can bring more energy and electricity to my people, right? All right, so that could have the worst outcome for climate change, energy equity, and energy security, because it really is an each person on their own and each country on their own type of way of being. And it's not friendly in that if there are conflicts or tensions because of the fragmentation, it's more likely to lead to escalating tensions and potential skirmishes, war, and things like that, hostility. Okay. It also would, because of the increases in climate change that we would not naturally see in such a scenario, lead to more disruptions in supplies for food and those kinds of things, more flooding, and there'd be more climate refugees and refugees escaping in different ways. So those are three extreme scenarios. My hope is a combination of the first two, because I do think the market is important, and I do think government support is important. So in other words, your voice is important in both of those. One thing I like about the government aspect, the policy aspect, is that everybody wins more quickly. I'm going to leave it with that, and there's no real answer right now, and the reason I'm leaving it here also is because I want you to start paying more attention to politics and to the news, because these things are real things that will have some impact in your future in terms of your energy access, your water access, and things you have to be concerned about. All right, that's the last video. On that note, I'll just say I'm really proud of you all, and I'm looking forward to talking to you on Thursday about your projects.